A solemn day of mourning for a New York City police officer who was killed in the line of duty. A wake being held today for Officer Randolph Holder. He died after being shot in the head by a suspect, and his funeral will be tomorrow in the city. So meanwhile, here in New York, the police union is calling for a boycott of movies by Quentin Tarantino after the director took part in an anti-police protest just days after Officer Holder was killed. A former New York City police commissioner telling Greta Van Susteren that this is the kind of environment that encourages criminals and makes many officers somewhat reluctant at times to do their duty.
I don't know who appointed Mr. Tarantino an advocate against police, but the fact is what he did was very irresponsible. His movies are very violent. Being anti-police is just not productive, and the people who get hurt are the public when these things are done.
Joined now by Leslie Marshall, syndicated radio talk show host and a blogger for the Huffington Post, and David Webb, host of the David Webb Show on SiriusXM Patriot, a columnist for The Hill. Both are Fox News contributors. Good to have you both here. You know, it's pretty.
Good morning.
It's tasteless and outrageous that many would say that Quentin Tarantino would stand up at a parade and a protest in the city and stand in front of a podium that says "Rise up, stop police terror," and talked about the violence that he sees being done on the part of police officers in this city when this police officer's body has not even yet been laid to rest. Leslie, what do you think?
Well, first of all, this protest was planned weeks before this officer lost his life, and obviously it's terrible when anyone, especially police officers, lose their life in the line of duty. Secondly, I think being here in Los Angeles and being a part of an industry that a lot of people benefit from, that have violence like Quentin Tarantino, I think some people forget that that's not the real world. That's fantasy. And Quentin Tarantino, although he may profit from that, he has every right to his personal opinion. He has every right via the First Amendment to march with these people, and people have every right to see or not see his movies. I don't think we need to call for a boycott. We have that power with our dollars every time we decide what we're going to do on a Friday or Saturday night, whatever movie we want to see or download from Netflix.
Well, I mean, anybody has the freedom to call for a boycott if they feel like, you know, that's the thing to do. People will make their decision over whether or not they want to follow along with it. But, you know, you contrast what Quentin Tarantino did in taking part in this protest with what the FBI director, James Comey, says. And he is one to, you know, he spends time with police officers, with agents. He wants to know what's going on the ground. So that's what he did in this instance. And here's what he was told. Let's play it.
I spoke to officers privately in one big city precinct who described being surrounded by young people with mobile phones held high, taunting them when they get out of their cars. They said to me, "We feel under siege and we don't feel much like getting out of our cars."
David Webb?
You know, first, Martha, to Leslie's point, Quentin Tarantino went to a rally that was planned weeks ago, but his comments weren't set in stone weeks ago. He said what he said. The left that likes to equivocate, especially the elitists in Hollywood, they don't equivocate when a black man who was a police officer, either his black or his blue life didn't matter. You know, the boycott up to the people. Tarantino's just another elitist Hollywood person. When it comes to James Comey, we should also bring in Rahm Emanuel and Attorney General Loretta Lynch weeks ago in a meeting they thought where there were no reporters talking about the issues in Chicago. And, you know, I have an alert in my hand here issued by the FBI for a national anarchist group, the National Liberation Militia, calling for Halloween-style attacks, bricks, false calls. I have a friend who sends me a call by an to an EMS dispatcher Sunday night at 3 a.m., fake call that a cop shot in the head. Let's not kid ourselves. The FBI director has more credibility than Josh Earnest, this president, Quentin Tarantino, or any of them. When you look at the reality on the ground, that police officers are seen as the opponents or enemies by some. And, you know, if there are issues to be dealt with in the police lines and the police forces, we deal with that. But this has become a pervasive narrative by the left, the elitists, the progressive Democrat, President Obama, who goes to Chicago, but doesn't address all the lives that matter or crime that matters.
How helpful would that be? You know, you hear it from the FBI director, and it is a different tone than what we've heard from the president on this, Leslie. How powerful would it be to hear something like that from the president?
Well, first of all, and even Mr. Comey has admitted there is no research that backs up what he said in his discussion with those officers in that city. What we do see with research is there's an increase in gang activity, there's an increase in drugs.
Do you think it's not true that given everything that's been happening, that many police officers are reluctant or nervous about getting out there and being videoed?
You know what? Honestly, the police officers that I've spoken with, not only here in Los Angeles, where we have an increase in violent crime within our city, but throughout the country, are very brave people who sign up to put their lives on the line, who are out there to serve and to protect, and they're not afraid to get out of their car because some college kids are going to snap their pictures because they have nothing to hide, because they're there to do their job, and they're there to do their job the proper way to be trained. David, is anyone more fearful in this climate? I would imagine some are. But I think the vast majority of them are professionals. They're trained and trained well to do what they do.
And they need the support of the administration, and they need the support of all the people who count on them to protect their lives.
With all due respect to
Martha, to your question, Martha, to your question. David, let me answer Martha's question.
About what's going
Nobody
on
can hear
the
anything
streets.
right now. David, hold on. Leslie, go ahead. We're out of time. So go ahead, Leslie, real quick.
Martha, to your point, the president standing up and saying, you know, and echoing what the FBI director has said, I don't really feel makes a difference. I really don't.
When he speaks, it makes a difference, but when he doesn't speak, it doesn't make a difference. Leslie, that's a fantasy.
Look at the numbers.
The reality is, in this country, we've got a very pervasive environment of anti-police, which is not good. Over 800,000 cops in this country. Most of them, 99% of them, do their jobs daily. Even in LA, in your city, they say that arrests are made without use of force for the most part.
Thank you very much, guys. Good to have you here.